Okay, in Deuteronomy chapter 11, this is for every man, every man. The first promise that God gave us that centers around something, Deuteronomy chapter 11. Anybody there? Okay, let's get there. You beat me that time. That'll be about the last time you beat me on anything in this thing. Because, brothers, let me tell you something. I plan to have no intention of letting anybody out-hunger me on this thing here. Deuteronomy, no way, I don't see it. Deuteronomy chapter 11 and verse 18 says, therefore shall you lay up these my words in your what? In your heart, verse 18, and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. Now just think about it. I heard a guy talking on the radio the other day, and he was talking about this particular guy who carried the word, and he had a t-shirt on, you know, and also he had the word in his hand, and he had a hat with the word on it. And then he gave an explanation of another guy who, you know, who kind of, you know, he kind of talked, you know, nice, and he had seemingly the character of Jesus, and he didn't wear the signs. And you know, I had to repent myself for this, because he was condescending in his explanation that said this other guy who had a hat on, who had a shirt on, who had the Bible, he was a fanatic. He says, but I'd rather be this other guy who was more or less living the word, you know, kind of talking the word. Now, people, don't let anybody psych you into that kind of stuff. That's nothing but the pride of grace. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be an embarrassment. Man, how are you going to be an embarrassment when you have to, listen to this, when the pendulum swings, we are so far front on the left in terms of exalting his name and carrying his word. It's all right as long as you haven't lost, listen to this, lost the sense of having the character too. Why can't you have character and also be a man that is extreme in your commitment toward Jesus? Don't let anybody fool you on that kind of stuff. I found myself, you understand, look, when I first was saved, I remember getting born again by the grace of the Lord. And the first thing I did, I was in the real estate business, you know, down in North Carolina. I mean, kind of making the money, you know, moolah, you know, and kind of dignified, wearing the three-piece suits and, you know, trying to maintain, you know, being cool, calling myself a Christian, living in a nice church. But when I met Jesus in a real way, within 2 days, I went into Kinston, North Carolina, pulled my car just up on the curve enough, opened the door of my car so people would have to walk by it, put placards on the side of my car that said, Jesus is coming soon, he's real, you got to get born again. I mean, just fanatic. You know what the brother said to me? Said to me, well, he's just excited. He'll be all right after a while. Guess what? 22 years later, I'm not all right. You see, when I first was saved, I wasn't ashamed of Jesus. But seemingly the more, you know, I got to speak in these conferences, you know, the more I'm on these boards, the more I speak in universities, the more I talk to the private sector companies. You know, now I don't want to, you know, kind of embarrass anybody. What I found is that I was becoming a professional Christian. There was no shame at all in what I was doing, because I was living in the pride of grace. I was saved, but people were more excited about football and basketball than I was about Jesus. You can't be excited about Jesus and not say something about him. You can't be excited about Jesus and not listen to this. Somehow tell somebody something about him to somewhere, act like it, and sometimes even wear a t-shirt. And look, if I can get shoes that had Jesus written across the front, I might even do that. Occasionally, you understand. I found out that when you get serious, you get broken. You think more about pleasing Jesus. Sometimes that does mean wearing a t-shirt. Sometimes it does mean wearing a Jesus hat. You see, look, don't all football folks, when they're excited about their team, they do that? We don't call them crazy. Don't let people make you think that you are not in there because you wear a Jesus hat or a Jesus shirt. Go for it every way you can, man. Go for Jesus, man. I'm telling you. I'm serious about that stuff. I mean, buddy, I'm looking for my time clock now. Okay, now watch this. Let's go back to verse 19. That was the sideline, no extra chart. It says, verse 19, and ye shall teach them to your children, speaking of them when thou sittest in thine house. Now look at this. This sounds like fanaticism to me. And when thou walkest by the way, it says, when you sit in your house, talk about the word. When you walk by the way, talk about the word. When you lie down, talk the word. When you rise up, talk the word. This is the Bible. See that in verse 20? And then it says what? It says this in verse 20. And thou shalt write them upon thy doorposts of thine house. You hear that? Write and put a sign on your house. Something, the word on the outside of your house. On your fence. It says, look at this. And upon thy gates. If you got a fence around your front yard, it says put the word out there somewhere. That's the word saying that. You see, we got to get back to the seriousness of the word. And then he said, what will be the results, Lord, if I go for it like that? What will be the consequence if I do that? He said, look, that your days may be multiplied. Did you hear that? What? Because when you get serious about God, that's when God gets serious about you. Do you hear me? Why should God let us live another moment while we have him hidden under a lampstand?